I almost didn't go to my stepmom's birthday party. Not because I was busy. Not because I forgot. Because I knew exactly how it would go. Small jokes. Side comments. That familiar tone people use when they don't respect you, but pretend they're being playful. My stepmom loved hosting big gatherings. Fancy decorations, catered food, a rented venue that made everything look elegant. She cared a lot about appearances. And in those appearances, I was always the awkward detail she tried to hide. I arrived 10 minutes late, on purpose. As soon as I walked in, I felt the eyes. Relatives, family friends, people who had heard stories about me for years without really knowing me. There she is, my stepmom said loudly, smiling in a way that didn't reach her eyes. Our mysterious businesswoman who never tells us what she actually does. Light laughter filled the room. I smiled politely. Hi, everyone. My father gave me a quick nod, but didn't come over. He rarely did in public gatherings. It was easier for him to stay neutral than defend me. I grabbed a drink and stood near a table, listening. A group of relatives were already talking. She says she works in property or something, probably just helping someone manage paperwork. She never had the personality for real business. They weren't whispering. They wanted me to hear. I didn't react. I had learned long ago that reacting gave them entertainment. Instead, I walked around the venue slowly. High ceilings, marble flooring, soft lighting. The large hall split into sections with decorative panels. The place looked expensive, because it was, and because I knew every corner of it better than anyone else in the room. A waiter passed by and paused when he saw me. "Ma'am," he said quietly, nodding respectfully. My stepmom noticed. She frowned slightly. "You know the staff here?" she asked, loudly enough for others to hear. I nodded. Something like that. She laughed. "See? Always acting mysterious. Just tell people what you do. It's not a secret mission." More laughter. I sipped my drink calmly. "You'll know soon." She rolled her eyes and went back to greeting guests. As the evening went on, the jokes became sharper. Someone asked me, "So, do you finally have a real job now?" Another added, "Or still trying to figure things out?" I smiled each time, calm, unbothered, because I knew something they didn't. At exactly 8:30 p.m., the venue manager walked up to me with a file in his hand. He didn't realize he was about to ruin the entire performance. "Ma'am," he said respectfully, "we need your signature on the final invoice approval before we close the event billing." The conversation around us went silent. My stepmom turned. "Her signature? Why?" The manager looked confused. "Because she's the owner of the property, ma'am. All event payments are approved by her." Silence. Not awkward silence. Shocked silence. My stepmom stared at me. My father slowly stood up from his chair. Relatives froze mid-sentence. "What did you say?" my stepmom asked. The manager repeated calmly, "She owns the venue." I took the file from his hand, signed it, and returned it. Then I looked at my stepmom. "This place you rented for your birthday?" I said gently, "It's mine." No one laughed this time. No one had anything to say, because the person they had been mocking for the past hour owned the entire building they were standing in. For a few seconds, nobody moved. My stepmom's smile faded first. Then her posture changed. She wasn't hosting anymore. She was calculating. My father looked between me and the manager like he was trying to process a language he didn't understand. "You're joking?" my stepmom said, but her voice had lost confidence. I shook my head. "No." The manager, still unaware of the tension, added politely, "She purchased this property 3 years ago through her company. We've been managing events under her direction since." That sentence did more damage than anything I could have said. 3 years. Which meant while they were joking about my mysterious job, I had already bought the place they now admired. One of the relatives who had mocked me earlier cleared his throat. "You own this whole venue?" "Yes. My stepmom tried to recover." "Well, why didn't you ever tell us?" I looked at her calmly. "You never asked. You assumed." That landed harder than any insult. People around us suddenly became very interested in their drinks, their phones, the decorations. No one wanted to be the next person speaking. My father finally walked over. "Why would you keep something like this from family?" I smiled slightly, because every time I spoke about my work, it turned into a joke. So I stopped talking. He had no reply to that. The energy in the room shifted. The same people who had been casually mocking me now looked uncomfortable standing in a building owned by the person they dismissed. Aunties who had whispered about my lack of direction were now staring at the marble floors like they had never seen them before. My stepmom tried one last time to regain control. "Well, that's impressive. You should have told us. We're proud of you." I didn't challenge her words. I didn't expose the hypocrisy. I just said, "Thank you," because I didn't need an apology. I didn't need validation. The proof was under their feet. The manager leaned toward me again. "Ma'am, the staff is asking if you'd like the usual post-event inspection tonight or tomorrow morning." I replied, "Tomorrow morning. Let them finish comfortably." That one line did something subtle. It reminded everyone that I wasn't a guest here. I was in charge. My stepmom looked around the hall like she was seeing it for the first time. The decorations, the lights, the catering, everything she thought she had arranged so perfectly now felt borrowed. Because it was. The rest of the party continued, but the tone had completely changed. No more jokes. No more comments. Only polite conversation. People who hadn't spoken to me earlier now came up asking about real estate, business, and how I got started. The same curiosity that had been mockery an hour ago was now admiration. I answered calmly, briefly, without excitement, because I knew this interest wasn't about me. It was about what I owned. My father stood beside me quietly for a while. Then he said softly, "I didn't know." "I know," I replied. That was the problem. As the cake was cut and guests began leaving, my stepmom avoided eye contact. She thanked people, smiled for photos, but her confidence from earlier was gone. Before leaving, I walked up to her. "Happy birthday," I said. She nodded. "Thank you, and congratulations." I smiled. "You chose a beautiful venue." She understood the sentence, and for the first time all evening, she had nothing clever to say. When the last guest left, the hall fell quiet. I walked through the space slowly, checking lights, tables, details, like I always do after events. Not as a guest, as the owner. Outside, my stepmom waited for her car. She glanced back at the building once, then at me. No sarcasm. No jokes. Just a small nod. Respect had arrived late, but it had finally arrived.